Hey everyone, I just want to do a quick bike check with you on my Salsa Blackthorn. So here we go. All right, so this is my Salsa Blackthorn that I had built up during the pandemic. It's made a few changes over the past few years, but I'll just go over the basics in its current configuration. So it is a 140 in the rear, 150 front. I have a RockShox Deluxe Ultimate in the rear here. I also have a RockShox Lyric in the front, 150. And if we continue going on here, as a part of the braking, I have SLX 4-piston brakes. I have XT shifters on here. My handlebar itself, that is a SQ Lab 30X. It's 780 width. And on the ends here, we have these Ergon GA3 grips. Now, the interesting thing about the handlebar is that it has a 12-degree back sweep, so it helps with my ergonomics, a little bit less stress on the wrists. Other things on here to accessorize it, I have a timber bell, and I have my Garmin Edge 830, along with a mount for my outbound lighting lights. And as we kind of make our way across the top here, here is my saddle. It is a Physique Argo 3D printed saddle, quite comfortable, really like it. And it's sitting on top of a 150 millimeter Katsuma Air dropper post. If we go a little bit further down here, you'll see that I do have a Tubolito strapped on here to the frame and my 1-Up EDC tool and pump. All right, if we look at our crank area, we have a XT crank. It's 165 millimeters length, the 28 tooth chain ring with an E13 combination chain guide and bash guard. If we kind of move back here, we have the XT cassette and derailleur and an XT chain, of course. And here you can see the 4-piston SLX brake on a 203 XT ICE rotor. All right, the wheels, go ahead and do these now. The wheels are Noble TR35 carbon wheels, and they sit on DT Swiss 240 hubs, front and rear. The bike comes in at a little over 32 pounds. And that's with all the accessories added onto the bike as well. So it makes it for a pretty good climber. Anyway, let's go ahead and take it out on the trail and I'll give you some more thoughts about the bike. So I'd mentioned earlier that this is the Salsa Blackthorn configuration. So when I originally had purchased this bike, it was in the Cassidy configuration. It was just the Cassidy frame with a Fox X2 float, 165 millimeter shock, really big bike. So I went ahead and built it up as a Cassidy, and it was basically during the pandemic, so that was all that I could actually find that was available out there. So I built up this really huge bike and realized this is a lot of bike, especially for the trails that I ride. And the only relief that I was thinking of is that someday I could actually convert it over to a Salsa Blackthorn when I had the extra cash. So I went ahead and built up a nice Cassidy bike, and it's a great bike. I really like it. It's just pretty heavy and not really or quite overbiked for these trails. So I went ahead and recently just got a shock in the fork, and I got it on the cheap, and kind of just to figure out how this would work. And so far I'm really happy with it. It is much lighter. It climbs really well, and it's nimble in these nice turny sections. So the great news about all of this is that when I head out to Mammoth or Moab or anything where I might want to use the bigger configuration, I can just switch it out. I basically have 2 bikes in one. So the fork that I got, the RockShox Lyric, is a base fork. It's the Select, and I figured I'd save some money, try it out, and if I want to later on, I can upgrade it to an Ultimate by just switching out some of the internals, because this is the latest form factor version of the RockShox. So if I want to upgrade that, it's put a few $100s into that, and I can get the high-end fork. So again, right now this is good for my needs, and we'll see how it goes later on. The other thing I want to talk about is the brakes. I started out with these SLX brakes, and I had some problems with fade after the first year or so, maybe a year and a half. It started fading more, and I had learned that these Shimano hoses tend to expand over time, and it leads to fade. So I decided to try some different brakes. I got these, I purchased a set of Hope, I think V4 brakes, and it was just an absolute failure. The continually squealed, made noise, all sorts of strange things. I couldn't get the pistons to come out evenly. I bled them like 20 times. I massaged them, I cleaned them, I did everything you're supposed to do, and they still wouldn't come out even. So I said, F it, I'm gonna go ahead and just go back to the SLX. So I replaced the hoses. I blew up by accident one of the calipers, so I had to replace the caliper, but other than that, they've been pretty dependable. Maybe in the future I might try something different, but after the investment on the Hope brakes has kind of left me a little shy of doing something like that again. So we'll see. So to switch this bike from Cassidy to Blackthorn, or Blackthorn to Cassidy, only requires a change out of the linkage, and you can pick that up for around $100. And it only takes me about 30 minutes to do it, so definitely wish I had done it sooner. The linkage obviously is slightly longer for the shorter travel bike, so that's how you tell the difference between the two. As soon as my next big trip, I'll just swap everything out and have a good time with the big suspension. It is hard to believe. It is February 2nd. It is 58.7 degrees outside right now. And it's, what time is it? It is 8:47 in the morning. I think the highs are going to be in the 80s this week. It is definitely a warm start for February. Hopefully I'll get some rain, and I keep my fingers crossed that things cool down. I do like the warm weather in the winter, so it makes riding here so nice, but kind of scares me when it's this warm now. Does it mean it's going to be a lot worse when the heat really starts in the summer? We'll see. The last thing I want to talk about the bike is my original wheel set. So I was gifted this carbon wheel set last summer, and I just absolutely love this wheel set. But my old wheels had Shimano hubs and kind of bought them on a budget. Well, now I've had to buy like 3 sets of those hubs because they kept on imploding. So my recommendation is don't skimp on your hubs when you're building the wheel. Hey there. It has cost me as much in repair and fixing it as it was to buy something nicer. So that is my warning to you all. But these new wheels with the DT Swiss hubs, these have been reliable, they're easy to work on, they're easy to lubricate, they're easy to maintain, and I will never go back again. All my bikes will now have DT Swiss hubs. All right, guys. Well, that's been my bike check. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts.